In this program, we are going to analyze the biology of drug dependency. We will then see how alcohol acts on our cells. And finally, we will learn that our planet is also in an advanced state of intoxication. People will always find reasons to consume drugs, to reach new levels of awareness, stimulate the mind, attain ecstasy, evade problems, relax, or give themselves a boost. Every product has its own specific effects. As for dependency, it lies in wait for just about all drug users. Just think of how hard it is to stop smoking or drinking. You see, dependency is not just a question of willpower. From time immemorial, man has been irresistibly drawn to chemical compounds that are not necessarily needed for survival: drugs. He uses these substances to reach heightened physical and mental states. Drugs would probably have little effect on the health of users and society as a whole if you could take them without becoming addicted to them. But people who take drugs are often slaves to them. That dependency is sometimes so powerful it can have devastating repercussions. Why do simple chemical products cause such addictions? Scientists believe that drug addiction originates deep in our brains. Drugs affect the nervous circuits responsible for our natural biological needs, such as eating, drinking, or making love. The brain functions through billions of cells called neurons. Consisting of a cellular body and elongated fibers, neurons are connected together into vast networks. The information that flows through these networks is transmitted in two different ways. On the neurons, the signals are conveyed through electric currents. When these currents reach the end of the neurons, they cause chemical substances called neurotransmitters to be secreted. The neurotransmitters make contact with the next neuron, thereby creating a new electric current. Neurotransmitters play a vital role in our brain. Depending on their chemical nature and abundance, they enhance or diminish the signals transmitted from one neuron to the next, and thus regulate all activity in every region of the brain. In the brain, every neurotransmitter is assigned precise functions. For example, one of the brain's most important functions, satisfying vital needs, appears to be associated with a neurotransmitter called dopamine. According to some hypotheses, when an animal is hungry, thirsty, or experiences sexual urges, the neurons which secrete dopamine become more active. This increase of activity excites the animal, prompting it to look for food, water, or a sexual partner. Once the need has been satisfied, the activity in that part of the animal's brain goes back to normal. Later, when the need arises again, the cycle starts anew. Scientists believe that drugs also act on the brain circuits associated with the satisfaction of vital needs. When a person absorbs cocaine, for instance, the drug reaches the brain quickly. It causes an increase in the amount of dopamine present in the neurons. This functional modification of the brain creates intense euphoria. After a while, the effect disappears, but the brain remembers the euphoric sensation. Haunted by the memory, the person then feels something is lacking, a need, a feeling similar to being hungry. That feeling can only be alleviated by consuming cocaine again. In time, the vicious circle intensifies. The need to take drugs can replace the vital needs and even become stronger than the need to eat, for instance. Most known drugs, including cannabis, heroin, caffeine, and nicotine seem to have a similar effect. The degrees of dependency they induce stem from their chemical structure, but even more so from the way they are used. As a rule, the quicker a drug reaches the brain, the greater the euphoric effect and dependency it creates. Therefore, drugs taken orally, such as caffeine, take several minutes to reach the brain. They will usually induce a much milder addiction than drugs which are injected into the bloodstream. Heroin, for example, takes only 14 seconds to reach the brain. Scientists estimate that the drugs that create the greatest dependency are the ones that are smoked. Their active substances reach the brain in only 6 seconds. According to some researchers, nicotine creates a dependency as powerful as heroin because it acts directly on the dopamine neurons in the brain. Suddenly stopping the use of a drug, especially a narcotic drug, will entail a series of violent symptoms, withdrawal symptoms. Fear of these symptoms, which are sometimes horrendous, contributes to maintaining the vicious circle of addiction. Drugs do not only affect people's behavior, they're also harmful to the body's organs and functions as a whole. An overdose can lead to acute intoxication and death. But even more often, the chronic use of a drug will cause severe health disorders. The roots of the drug problem lie in our culture as much as in our bodies. To solve the problem, we must take both of these factors into account. The problem of drugs concerns all levels of society. There are drugs for the poor, like crack, and drugs for the rich, like cocaine. The drug problem is also a political and economic problem. Millions of dollars are involved in the illegal trafficking of drugs, and all laws run up against powerful interests. The illicit money generated by drug trafficking is invested in casinos, restaurants, bars, hotels, making it look as if it were honorably gained. Some believe that so-called soft drugs, such as marijuana and hashish, should be legalized, that it would be more intelligent to control their sale than to prohibit them. This would resemble what is done for alcohol. We all like to have a little nip once in a while, but the consumption of alcohol, too, can also turn into an addiction. In most societies, alcohol consumption is a common activity. Drinking has long been practiced as part of a normal social life. But in some people, the drinking habit gets out of hand. Excessive alcohol consumption cuts people off from their social and professional life, causes a gradual deterioration of their personality and health, and can even end in death. For a long time, the victims of alcohol abuse were considered responsible for their own decline and misery. However, recent research has indicated that alcoholism is a hereditary illness. The effects of alcohol depend on its level of concentration in our blood. The alcohol we ingest is quickly absorbed by the digestive tract. It is then dispersed into the bloodstream and spreads to all the body organs. If we drink only a small amount, the alcohol level in our blood remains low. In small amounts, alcohol stimulates the nervous system. It heightens the reflexes, creates a feeling of well-being, and reduces fatigue. These effects are short-lived. The alcohol molecules terminate their journey in the liver, where they are converted into another compound, acetaldehyde. The chemical degradation is carried out by an enzyme which prevents the bodily cells from becoming intoxicated. However, alcoholics consume large amounts of alcohol. In high doses, the effects of alcohol are the opposite than when consumed in small doses. It slows the reflexes and upsets coordination. blurs memory, lowers concentration. It is the state of drunkenness. Alcoholics maintain a high concentration of alcohol in their blood, which perpetuates its effects. Little by little, they acquire a physical addiction to the drug. Should they try to stop consuming alcohol, they'll experience a series of violent withdrawal symptoms. Later, they develop a tolerance to alcohol, which means that in order to experience similar effects, they have to gradually increase the amounts they drink. In the long term, the harmful effects of alcohol show up in severe health problems, such as cirrhosis, of poisoning of the liver, or in serious damage to the brain, heart, and other organs. Scientists no longer believe that alcoholics are responsible for their condition. In fact, geneticists are conducting studies in families in which some members are alcoholic. The studies demonstrate that children of alcoholic parents run a 4 times greater risk of becoming alcoholics. This tendency seems to stem from the genes and not from the family environment, since it is observed in children of alcoholic parents who have been adopted and raised by families without an alcohol problem. In addition, susceptibility to alcohol varies considerably from one human race to another. Some ethnic groups appear to be virtually immune to alcohol. How do these alcoholism genes act? Scientists have formulated a number of hypotheses. According to one of them, the sensation of euphoria a person feels after drinking would not be the result of the alcohol itself. That feeling would be caused by substances generated by the breaking down of the alcohol by the organism. According to the hypothesis, the enzyme that causes alcohol to break down would be more active in alcoholics than in people who are not alcoholic. After drinking, people with the abnormal enzyme would convert the alcohol into euphoria-generating substances very rapidly. Therefore, when they drink, these people would experience a much more intense euphoric state than others, which would encourage them to consume more. Based on these observations, researchers are hoping to discover a way to prevent alcoholism. They are trying to analyze the enzyme responsible for the degradation of alcohol in the blood of alcoholics or members of their family. If the enzyme proves to be related to alcoholism, a simple blood test would identify people at risk. By abstaining from consuming alcohol completely, these persons would avoid becoming alcoholic. Researchers are also experimenting with drugs to treat alcoholism. The drugs are able to partially counter the effects alcohol has on brain cells. These drugs, still in the experimental stage, have reduced the need for alcohol by 40% in species of mice predisposed to alcoholism. However promising these new approaches may seem, the experts agree that the best form of treatment for alcoholism is still AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. AA groups enable alcoholics to share their experiences. Advances in science help us better understand the causes of alcoholism, but it's up to people as a whole to help alcoholics reintegrate into society. The disturbing thing about addiction is that it's a destructive gesture that people make consciously. In drug abuse, you can never be a winner. It's a little like playing Russian roulette with 6 bullets in the barrel. Man sometimes behaves oddly. And how can he want to poison himself with dangerous substances? Heaven knows there are enough around over which he has no control. The contamination of our planet is slow, insidious, and universal. And although the planet, like human beings, has defense mechanisms to eliminate toxic products, it seems we are exceeding their capacities. The biosphere as a whole is threatened by massive intoxication. For several decades now, man has been releasing thousands of chemical agents into his environment. He has become dependent upon these products as they enable him to extract raw materials, transform them, and make the objects he needs and uses. But these substances, often as harmful as drugs, are seriously upsetting the biosphere, just as if it were a living organism. These poisonous substances threaten the natural environment, the organisms that inhabit it, and the health of the people using them. A number of chemical pollutants contaminating the environment endanger living beings because, like drugs, they are foreign to the normal processes of life. To determine how these substances act, toxicologists use a colony of liver cells. Normally, the liver eliminates toxic substances absorbed by animals and man. The liver cell's response to these agents enables the toxicologist to predict the response of entire organisms. Their studies have indicated that many toxic substances act on the membrane which surrounds cells. This is the case of heavy metals like mercury, lead, and cadmium. The membrane is not merely a protective layer. Equipped with tiny pumps, it regulates the flow of many substances into and out of the cells. The constant pumping action of these membrane pumps enables the cells to maintain a different chemical composition than that of their ambient environment. That composition is essential to maintaining their vital processes. In weak concentrations, heavy metals do not destroy the cells, but they can prevent the membrane pumps from functioning normally. This alters the cell's chemical equilibrium. The environment may contain very small amounts of the chemical contaminants. However, these have the property of accumulating in the tissues of the organisms that ingest them. From one link of the food chain to the next, their concentration can quickly increase. In organisms at the top of the pyramid of life, such as mammals and man, the substances can reach high levels and disrupt vital functions. Lead, for instance, a heavy metal, can damage the nervous system of small children. Agents that are hazardous for the environment do not only act on the cellular membrane. Some, such as the hydrocarbons emitted by combustion, have an impact on the genetic material at the heart of cells. These substances, said to be genotoxic, penetrate the cellular membrane. Genotoxic agents attack the long molecules of deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, which constitute genes. They cause chemical changes in the basic units of these vital molecules. The changes are liable to result in mutations, that is, permanent changes to the structure of the genes. Scientists believe that some mutations can cause a healthy cell to become a cancer cell. The list of mutagenic and carcinogenic agents that can cause these mutations is a long one. It includes pesticides, heavy metals, emissions from combustion and cooking reactions, and many others. While we know how many of these toxic agents act in laboratory conditions, we know much less about their effects in the natural environment. At present, the norms of exposure to various contaminants are based on the individual effects of each contaminant. However, in our environment, there are hundreds, even thousands of substances. The level of toxicity of chemical contaminants, like drugs, which become more dangerous when mixed with other drugs, may be increased and even multiplied through combinations. This phenomenon is called synergy. Synergy is evident, for instance, in the pesticides used to fight harmful organisms. Scientists have noted that some pesticides can affect the immune system, protecting organisms against infection and cancer. When several of these products are present, as is often the case in our environment, the toxic effects are combined. Exposure to such a mixture can jeopardize an organism's resistance. The effects on our health of the veritable chemical cocktails that our air, water, soil, and food have become remain largely unknown. While we sometimes accuse drug users of slowly killing themselves, we have to admit that our planet may well be risking an overdose. It is high time that it underwent treatment for drug abuse. Today we know that drugs are at the root of poverty, criminal activity, juvenile delinquency, and physical and moral misery. We will always seek ecstasy, but isn't the best ecstasy just being and feeling alive?